Today is June 9th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we are going to continue our journey through Two Wives, Chapter 8, by reading pages 115 and 116. We are going to read the personal stories, They Lost Nearly All, Listening to the Wind, the top of page 463. And finally, out of the 12 and 12, we are going to begin tradition number 8 by reading page 166. So, hope you all are doing well this morning, my friends. Hey, life is good over here. We've woken up. We're alive another day. We've been given a brand new set of 24 hours. And hey, it's up to us today who we decide to be. There's always a choice. So with that, my friends, let's go ahead and press on and get to the good stuff. So if you recall from the last few days of reading, we learned about the different types of alcoholics wives might be working with. And yesterday we talked a little bit about how sometimes men will receive the help willingly and sometimes they will not. But I really liked yesterday's line here. It says, since this book was first published, AA has released thousands of alcoholics from asylums and hospitals of every kind. The majority have never returned. The power of God goes deep. So, for the most part, for those who are willing, there is so much hope thanks to the Fellowship of AA and to this program. Again, we're going to continue that thought by reading pages 115 and 116. We find that most of this embarrassment is unnecessary. While you need not discuss your husband at length, you can quietly let your friends know the nature of his illness. But you must be on guard not to embarrass or harm your husband. When you have carefully explained to such people that he is a sick person, you will have created a new atmosphere. Barriers which have sprung up between you and your friends will disappear with the growth of sympathetic understanding. You will no longer be self-conscious or feel that you must apologize as though your husband were a weak character. He may be anything but that. Your new courage, good nature, and lack of self-consciousness will do wonders for you socially. The same principle applies in dealing with children. Unless they actually need protection from their father, it is best not to take sides in any argument he has with them while drinking. Use your energies to promote a better understanding all around. Then that terrible tension which grips the home of every problem drinker will be lessened. Frequently, you have felt obliged to tell your husband's employer and his friends that he was sick, when, as a matter of fact, he was tight. Avoid answering these inquiries as much as you can. Whenever possible, let your husband explain. Your desire to protect him should not cause you to lie to people when they have a right to know where he is and what he is doing. Discuss this with him when he is sober and in good spirits. Ask him what you should do if he places you in such a position again. But be careful not to be resentful about the last time he did so. There's another paralyzing fear. You may be afraid your husband will lose his position. You are thinking of the disgrace and hard times which will befall you and the children. This experience may come to you, or you may have already had it several times. Should it happen again, regard it in a different light. Maybe it will prove a blessing. It may convince your husband that he wants to stop drinking forever. And now you know that he can stop if he will. Time after time, this apparent calamity has been a boon to us, for it opened up a path which led to the discovery of God. We have elsewhere remarked how much better life is when lived on a spiritual plane. If God can solve the age-old riddle of alcoholism, he can solve your problems too. We wives found that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, and all the things which go to make up the self-centered person. And we were not above selfishness or dishonesty. As our husbands began to apply spiritual principles in their lives, we began to see the desirability of doing so too. At first, some of us did not believe that we needed this help. We thought on the whole that we were pretty good women, capable of being nicer if our husbands stopped drinking. But it was a silly idea that we were too good to need God. Now we try to put spiritual principles to work in every department of our lives. When we do that, we find it solves our problems too. The ensuing lack of fear, worry, and hurt feelings is a wonderful thing. We urge you to try our program, for nothing will be so helpful to your husband as a radically changed attitude toward him, which God will show you how to have. Go along with your husband if you possibly can. All right, my friends, so we are finally back to listening to the wind. And the last few days that we read this story, our narrator has, she met a person that she really loved, but unfortunately her alcoholism ended up ruining that relationship. And she hasn't gotten to a place where she's admitted that the alcohol is the problem yet. But once again, she's relocating. The relationship broke up over my drinking, and I packed my little car and moved myself, my son, our dog, and 3 cats to the mountains. And we find out that her drinking is getting so bad that she's waking up really, really sick. She's malnourished. That she's working this new job, trying to forget her old life and her old ways. But again, she's hurting. So we're going to read the first 2 paragraphs of 463. For the first time in my life, I tried very hard to quit drinking. After a few days of shakes and nausea, I decided that a shot of tequila wouldn't hurt. I managed to put on a little weight, but 6 months later I collapsed. I was diagnosed with a bleeding ulcer. I was in the hospital for 4 days that time. They told me that if I didn't stop drinking, I would probably die. My son called his grandparents, and they traveled to the mountains to visit us. I had not seen them for years. We got along much better than I expected. The relationship they formed with my son was incredible. My dad took his grandson hiking in the wilderness, and my mom helped out with looking after him while I worked. My health continued to fail. My parents wound up moving to our town in an attempt to help their grandson and me. All right, so we will stop there today in the personal stories. As we can see that there is some good that's coming from this. She's starting to realize the alcohol is the problem. The family's starting to grow closer together as well, even though her health is in decline right now. It's been a few days. Finally, we're seeing some hope here for this lady, even though her health, again, is in pretty bad shape. And as I always say, hey, these stories are in here for a reason. So stay tuned. I have a feeling there's going to be some hope by the end of this story. And finally, out of the 12 and 12, we're on tradition number 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. We're reading 166 today. Alcoholics Anonymous will never have a professional class. We have gained some understanding of the ancient words, freely ye have received, freely give. We have discovered that at the point of professionalism, money and spirituality do not mix. Almost no recovery from alcoholism has ever been brought about by the world's best professionals, whether medical or religious. We do not decree professionalism in other fields, but we accept the sober fact that it does not work for us. Every time we have tried to professionalize our 12th step, the result has been exactly the same. Our single purpose has been defeated. Alcoholics simply will not listen to a paid 12th stepper. Almost from the beginning, we have been posited that face-to-face work with the alcoholic who suffers could be based only on the desire to help and be helped. When an AA talks for money, whether at a meeting or to a single newcomer, it can have a very bad effect on him too. The money motive compromises him and everything he says and does for his prospect. This has always been so obvious that only a very few AAs have ever worked the 12th step for a fee. Despite this certainty, it is nevertheless true that a few subjects have been the cause of more contention within our fellowship than professionalism. All right, my friends, so we will stop there in today's reading, it's very direct here. Alcoholics simply will not listen to a paid 12th stepper. And I like this next line. Almost from the beginning, we have been positive that face-to-face work with the alcoholic who suffers could be based only on 2 things. The desire to help, that's the one who's trying to enact his 12th step, and be helped. And that is for the newcomer to be willing to receive that help. Pretty simple right there. And money just, as we're seeing a recurring theme with a lot of these traditions, money just complicates things. and can be distracting toward our primary purpose to help and to be helped. And finally, going back to the big book one more time, I think it's fascinating on page 116 that the wives are saying, hey, and this is before Al-Anon was ever created, of course, but practicing these spiritual principles, these 12 steps in their lives, even though they're not alcoholics necessarily, can be abundantly better. It says, we have elsewhere remarked how much better life is when lived on a spiritual plane. If God can solve the age-old riddle of alcoholism, he can solve your problems too. We wives found out that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, and all the things which go to make up the self-centered person. And we are not above selfishness or dishonesty. As our husbands began to apply spiritual principles in their lives, we began to see the desirability of doing so too. You know, that's powerful right there. You know, that we're all human beings. And I know this is more of an alcohol-centered program, of course. That's where it begins. But the big book, you know, also talks about just all the other problems. That selfishness and self-centeredness, they're the root of a lot of our problems. Alcohol was but a symptom. So if that's the case, then these 12 steps and 12 principles, they can help with everything. You know, I loved step 12. Practice these principles in our alcoholic affairs? No. All our affairs. So for the rest of my life, I can practice these 12 steps of living an honest life, taking inventory, praying, practicing God consciousness, you know, meditating on every issue that's bothering me. So I think this could benefit anybody, and I think that's what the wives were saying here. Hey, this can help you too. Anytime we try to strengthen our spiritual life, that's an investment in all of our affairs, you know, of everything we're going through. Just absolutely wonderful advice. But my friends, that's all we have time for today. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me in this Lifeboat of Recovery. It truly is an honor to be here. Just one day at a time, just showing up, one step at a time, one day at a time. And if we are given another set of 24 hours, my friends, I look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.